Hey, hello everyone. Great to see you again in weeks.
Hi. We should try to join all office hours and at least say hi.
Oh yeah, why not?
Let's wait 1 more minute and we can start.
How are things going? Are we again past a feature freeze rush or?
A couple late reviews now on my side. Okay, let's start. So, welcome to another database office hours for Wednesday, 18th of November. I'm going to share my screen with the agenda. So the first topic is by Craig, the engineering manager of the database team. It's about gathering feedback on maintainer, how much time we spend on database reviews, common themes, what can we do for making reviews better. There are a lot of some interesting comments by Tuna and Adam, and a proposal by Alper that could keep us working for the next 2 years.
Yeah, that's for the next century.
Yeah. So yeah, I think that I will discuss Alper's proposal. It could be a whole new product category for GitLab. So like reviewing database updates in general. Um, I don't know. Do you anyone want to talk about what they proposed? Because we had some additional proposals on reviews, etc. Or should we take it offline?
Just a comment. I was having a similar proposal that can maybe work for the reviews. Yeah, that one. I don't know. Don't want to spend too much time on it. If you have time, just give it a read. It's still kind of fuzzy, so it's not entirely worked out, but yeah, it's an idea.
Okay, we will take it and comment on the issue.
Thanks.
Thank you. Anything else?
Yeah, particularly difficult are, a scope change occurs or a finder change occurs. A lot of different code is using it, but we don't know which one in that particular review. So we don't review the other things which might get broken. That's, I think, a fundamental challenge.
Yes, I agree. And it's difficult to know, yeah, to figure out all the affected parts of the application.
Yeah, what happens is that I usually ask, hey, is anyone else using? Usually the answer is like, no, this is, I mean, if it's, hey, no, it's the only code which I'm using, that's fine. You can, of course, search for it. But finders are also a bit difficult in that, they are building up a query in runtime. Sometimes the input comes from the user interface, like sorting column. In that case, there's a cloud of possible queries which may come up, and we have no idea which one is affected particularly.
Yes, I agree. And we have caught off guard sometimes with finders that there are specific combinations of inputs of parameters that can make queries unusable. or can lead to queries that time out. So yeah, that's a problem. I agree. So the second topic is the recap of the discussion query timing recommendations. Steve has created the MR. Do you want to discuss about it, Steve, a little bit?
Sure. Yeah, I mean, I think we had a good discussion, or at least a good initial discussion about what kinds of guidelines should we have around the timings that we require or expect when introducing queries or modifying queries, and just kind of creating a central place for that in the docs. There's certainly, I think, a lot of room for additional information there and additional like guidance. But I think we've got a good starting point. It looks like it was merged this morning, or yeah, earlier today, depending on your time zone.
See, what is one short thing about query performance? When I like 1 year ago, I reduced it from 10 seconds or whatever in the document to 1 second actually. And in short, shall we aspire? Could you tell exactly like the one-line word? What do we say when we see a query performing over 1 second? Or
I think that the fact that we have it in the guidelines is a good start. So we can just link to the guidelines, and the guidelines are setting the rules. From the database team perspective, I can tell you that we already have an Abdex. We are already measure the performance of GitLab against the 100 milliseconds and the 50 milliseconds for GitLab.com. So in general, we don't want to have queries that go above 100 milliseconds. There are always exceptions. So we can live with a couple of exceptions there, but it's important to try and lower the execution times of most, if not all, queries.
yeah, it's very good result, because 1 year ago I tried to push it under 1 second and it was already hard, and now we did 100 millisecond. And also we know that like on any screen, we should have less than 100 queries, and the total of them should also be, you know, less than 100 milliseconds. So it's coming to an interesting point. So, I mean, let's say you have a few dozen queries on a page. Apparently, most of them are simple selects, like select username, limit 1. But there might be 1 or 2 like search queries, which are finding a set of records or a list of records. They are allowed to, you know, to be maybe around 100 milliseconds or less than 100 milliseconds, but the rest should be even like less than 10 milliseconds, which is always true, I think. I mean, single object finding, like finding a single row.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I agree. And we should take our responsibility here pretty seriously, if you want my opinion. And one of my comment there was about user-facing queries, queries that are used, as you said, in controllers, APIs. It's not acceptable. We are affecting the performance of GitLab as a whole. If a page takes 3 seconds to load because there are queries in there are 10 queries, it's taking 500 milliseconds. This is a problem, and we should try to not to increase the response times. So on our end, what we can do is keep all queries as low as possible.
Does it make sense to ask in the, you know, UI queries the authors of MRs to use the performance bar and to get, if they are working on a user screen, and to get a list of the queries from the performance bar and put it in the MR description at some point, so that we know, like, we slowly build every screen and in total all the queries below like a certain limit.
Yeah, this is food for thought. That would be great, but you know that most of the times we are not exposed to the front end changes, to the controller or view, to the controller changes. So, and this is also the discussion we had on having larger MRs that include both the database updates and the application code update that will allow us to see things like that. I don't know if you are aware of that discussion on.
No, if you link.
So yeah, I will find it and link it in the documentation. So there is this discussion on not breaking any more merge requests, updates in multiple merge requests, so that the database update is on its own, and including the database update together with the application update, so that the database reviewers are able to see the effect of the update. So this is two parts. So we will be able to understand what happens there. So there are some times that you can see a change in a finder or a table added, and you cannot get the context without adding checking also the application code. And the second part is what we are saying. If you can see the controller, for example, or the model, you can understand also how this will relate to other parts of the application also.
I'm curious, I don't remember with the performance bar, if there's a page that loads and then starts making API requests, does the performance bar display anything from that at all?
You can open the dropdown and see the AJAX requests. You could even see the GraphQL queries.
Cool.
Yeah, they won't affect the initial load time. So asynchronous requests won't affect, for example, how fast the page will load. So from let's say from an SEO perspective, but we also want those API requests to not take 10 seconds. So
right. Yeah, I was going to say, maybe I was wondering if we should add a section about expectations on an initial load time versus any other types of requests that occur after that. That could be helpful when we are dealing with an entire front end page that we'd want to look at.
I think that the update that we proposed and that we merged covers most of the parts on our side. So if we require that queries that are participating in API responses or any response don't take more than 100 milliseconds, at least we try to do our part on that end. So on the other end, if there is a loop that goes and runs 100 queries on a controller, I hope that we will catch it in the review of the controller or. Okay. So next item. So Alper, you have some additional comments there? Do you want to...
just a comment for the in GitLab product, we don't use GraphQL still extensively, but the challenge will be that in the front end, a front end MR will be able to ask for basically something equal to connecting to PSQL and typing 10 queries, So the GraphQL challenge at some point may be also something which will increase the number of queries on front-end MRs, which will be hard to detect. So you will not know that that GraphQL now touches 20 queries and n+1 risks, and it's a front-end MR, and you don't even notice that there is a query change. So that's a challenge for reviews. Just want to make, if any ideas there, if anyone has experiences, would be great.
Just a comment. We're already facing these issues. So new URIs are mostly, I've seen using GraphQL, at least in my team. And it's very easy to write n+1 queries, and chasing them down and solving them on the GraphQL level is quite challenging. And what I've seen to mitigate this is introducing costs. So each node that you are looking up has a certain cost, and within one request you can basically have, let's say, maximum 10. Well, you can reach maximum 10 costs, and then after that you get an error. So we have some sort of limits we can set up, based on the complexity of the GraphQL query, but we don't really use that at this point. I've seen a few fields already having this, but I think the main point is the n+1 queries, because you can load up each merge request. For each merge request, give me the diffs, the diff files or the diff stats, and that's, you can set up page size to 100. That can be easily 1,000 queries.
Yeah. Great comment, Adam. Thank you. So next thing to discuss, I wanted to bring to everyone's attention the effort to test with production data for anyone not knowing about that. So this is an epic, it will take some time to work through it. So on top of anything else we're doing to provide access to database maintainers to production-like data through Postgres AI, we're working also on setting up servers in GCP so that we can run migrations there. So our plan at the moment is set up one single server that will allow us to run in a safely without any connections to the outside world. It won't be able to send emails, etc., to run migrations for any branch. And our plan is to start single server, create an image, then figure out a way to provide a multi-user server to all maintainers. And the idea about maintainers is that all database maintainers already have access to red data, to production data. So we don't have to worry about other issues with security, etc. And once that step is done, everyone will be able to test migrations in the cloud without worrying. And then we will have to think about how we can automate that. And there are two possible roads there. One path is to anonymize production data. So when we create those thin clones, also anonymize the data. But that means that we will have to put the effort to mark the PII information, the columns that we will have to anonymize, and then anonymize the data. So that means that we will have a clone with anonymized data. So we will be able to maybe provide that clone access to more people that don't have access to the data. And another path is maybe setting up in the future a private runner that will be able to run CI tests against production data. And depending on whether we are using anonymized data or not, maybe we don't return any, we don't have any logs in the job, but at least we make our lives easy. So the common case will be that the tests pass. If the tests fail, a maintainer will be able to go and check what happened there without exposing any PII. I don't know if you have any opinions, anything to discuss here. Okay.
Yeah, in my experience, we tried to anonymize data before, and as far as I can tell, it was not easy to do that, like in a reliable way that also that the data also still makes sense, because you could just remove all descriptions from issues, for example, to some fixed words, but then you get no longer the random data you have from a regular database. So and then you have to be sure you're anonymizing everything. I'm also not sure if we want to how we want to keep that database like up to date with the schema, because would we be doing the production database re-anonymizing over and over again, or will we run migrations on that database to keep it in sync? Yeah, I see a lot of things that can go wrong with that.
I totally agree. And we have more than 300 tables. So even marking the columns that need anonymization is a huge task. Then we would have to set a process in all database reviews for any new table and any new column to go through security review. And also there are all the other problems, like we have JSON data, and we don't want to destroy the JSON-B data. So what happens if you have data that you want to anonymize inside the JSON-B? Like, for example, we have audit events. You may have a customer's name, a customer's email, an IP inside there. So we would have to run the anonymization, go inside there and anonymize only part of the JSON-B. The second part that worries me also with anonymization is that you mess with data. So you change how indexes work. If you anonymize names and emails or whatever else, the behavior of the indexes change. You don't have anymore the same data in production. And I don't know what the consequences are. And also you add a layer of another layer between you and your production data. So you are not testing against production data, you are testing against the anonymization process. So if the anonymization process has bugs, you test against those bugs. But yeah, this is an open discussion. Please, if you have any comments. The alternative is to skip anonymization and go directly to testing with production data in a way that does not expose PII information. So I gave an example, like for example, creating a private runner that will be able to use the server that I'm discussing in the first step here and test. Maybe this is a better option. But this is fully an open discussion at the moment. Please, if you have any comments, add them to the issues here. Okay, and one more discussion is GitLab database gem. We have discussed it in the past, and we have also created a new epic if we want to discuss it again and move forward. I don't know if what's your opinion is on creating a database gem. If you have any additional comments there. The idea is creating a database gem that will be reside outside of the core repository. We will be able to also use it in the version app, the customers app, or whatever other projects we have. And also we'll be able to provide it to outside contributors and anyone that wants to use what we are building here. And maybe others can come and help us with adding functionality.
Yeah, I think we had discussed it early on also. That's the initial issue you linked there. It makes a lot of sense, especially the versions app, customers dot app, license dot app, where I'm also working. We sometimes need the same challenges and we just copy the actual version of a certain database helper from GitLab code, and it's becoming tedious. A gem will be great. One problem will be so we have a lot of Postgres specific utilities and some generic. So we may move, I think, the Postgres specific to a certain gem, or we may just have a generic. I mean, my question is, do we want to contribute to the open source community? In that case, we have to think differently in packaging the gems. In that case, you may need 2 or 3 gems. But if we just want to have something like a GitLab gem, that will be great. The only risk I see there is that the license versions, customers, and some other applications are running on version 9, 10, 11 of Postgres. So that will be a challenge.
Yes, if we want to provide this as a gem, a generic gem, we would have to also support older versions of Postgres. And this may be a problem. Or we could set it to support PG11 and upwards and wait for the other projects to upgrade. Any other thoughts on this one? Any comments? Okay. This is an open discussion. If you have any ideas, any comments, please add to the epic. So the final topic is by Amparo. Do you want to? Hi, Amparo.
Hello, everyone. First time we're here. So I have this issue that I'm working on, and it's not even close to the verification step yet. But I just want to make sure that I have something like to be able to do it when it's time. And I'm wondering like if there's any specific or accepted approach to verify self-managed changes when you are concerned about any database performance issues if there is not enough data, like locally there's no problem, there's no issue because obviously there's not enough data in my local or self-managed different installation that I have. So I was wondering if there is something that it's like you do, or if we just turn the feature flag on in GitLab.com and then try it on them, or yeah, like if it's just enough to do it like on the staging, which I know doesn't have like a lot of data like GitLab.com does. But yeah, like just wondering how do you approach a scenario like that?
So is this a feature that will run only on self-managed instances? It won't be available in GitLab.com?
That is the idea because it will block new user sign up. So it's a new configuration. So I don't think we want to do that like on GitLab.com. I think we should add actually like the .com check to not do it on .com. So yeah, then if that is not like available in .com, how would I go about verifying the change?
Let me give a first answer there because I had some time to check the scaling of self-managed instances due to usage ping performance. So actually our database is schema is common on core edition, CE edition, enterprise edition, self-managed, and GitLab.com. So that first of all makes GitLab.com a very good example for every other instance. Secondly, when I had a check on different self-managed instances, the largest self-managed instances which we could get usage ping had 15 times less users than GitLab.com, and 35 times less CIE builds, and like 30, 40 times less issues. So I checked issues, CI builds, CI, and the users as examples. So what I believe is that any query or any code which runs good in GitLab.com, and GitLab.com is very challenging actually, and sometimes too challenging, will run on particularly self-managed instances. Second thing is that omnibus installations have some more relaxed Postgres settings, like statement timeout, which is 15 seconds on GitLab.com, is actually 60 seconds. So that could also be some nice thing.
Okay, but one question though. Okay, so our database is like a lot larger, but compared to customers, do we have better infrastructure, better processors for the database instances compared to those machines, or even like having databases running on hard disks instead of SSDs and stuff like that?
I totally think we have. I was able to check 3 or 4 customer installations, and they really have. Even the best customers have a bit less than what we have, a lot less.
I think that the memory team has a very nice dashboard in Periscope with data from self-hosted instances. So they use node data, and you can check memory, CPUs, and everything. I think that our guidelines here is that because, as Tun said, some self-hosted instances may be under provisioned, and also some self-hosted instances can grow to GitLab.com size. Let's hope that we will have self-hosted instances at that level at some point. So we always use GitLab.com as the comparison. So we always test against GitLab.com scale to make sure that everything must be able to run in GitLab.com. The second part of your question is, okay, we have to test with GitLab.com, but we cannot test it with GitLab.com at the moment. So
Right.
the idea there is exactly what we were discussing with testing with production data. At least database maintainers at the moment have access to a replica, to a thin clone from production, so can test against production data. And you could work with a database maintainer to test whatever feature you have against production data. Am I right? I don't know if everyone agrees with that approach.
Okay, I think that sounds good. Just another thing that okay, so do you think it's then not necessary to have like the don't run this on .com, or just run the long query in this case manually by a maintainer? Like in that case, would I be just verifying that the query does not run long enough that my process will, time out, or do I leave it as if I can, just turn on the feature flag, try, and then turn it back off? Does that make sense?
Yeah. So if the difficult part there, the expensive part is a query, you can test against production data using database labs. So if the only concern there is the query, you can also do that. Follow the guidelines on testing queries, and you can use database labs, and also involve a database reviewer and maintainer if you need
Sure. Okay.
additional checks. If there are additional parts of the update that need verification, then you need to do what I said.
Okay.
I think maybe slightly related. You may also generate synthetic data for any, table which is not. There are some examples of it. So you just create some data for something which doesn't exist on GitLab.com on your Rails console.
Do you have like any examples or anything that I
Yeah,
can
I
use
will
as
find
a
out.
reference?
I benefited from some other examples which are using bulk insert to generate like 10 million of some, rows.
Oh,
So that,
okay.
okay.
Okay,
Yeah.
great.
Yeah, but we cover only, if I recall correctly, 25 tables, and I think we fill a lot of data only for 20 of those, like issues, users. So we have this, and you can generate a local environment with a lot of data, but it will be lots of data, artificially generated data for projects, issues, notes, comments, and that kind of stuff. If what you want to test is not on those 20 core entities, is,
Mhm.
then you're out of luck there.
Okay. Okay. One follow-up question on database lab. I'm not sure if this is known. How long does it take for a new index to be applied to what we use on database lab? Because I've seen it's been, I think, like 4 days since an index that I was thinking was there was not there. So I'm not sure. Well, I haven't really checked today, but I checked it yesterday and it wasn't there. It was not my index. It was actually worked by someone else, but I was hoping it was there when I checked
So
yesterday.
you added the index, or is it an index that is in production?
No, I didn't add it, but it was already merged.
It was?
It was already merged. The merge request was already merged,
okay.
and I think deployed to production. Like 4 days
Okay,
ago.
we have an issue right now. The database labs is a little bit lagging with respect to production. In general, you should be able to see production updates in a day. I'm not
Okay.
sure, but there is an issue, and I know because I've seen somewhere in a comment, and I checked. So we are lagging behind production at the moment. If you don't mind, add a comment in the database Slack
Sure,
channel.
yeah. I'll recheck if the index is not there yet, but if not, I'll add a comment there.
Yeah. So there is an issue there. This is a technical issue. Nothing.
Okay.
Normally
Perfect.
we have a fresh.
Yeah, but nevertheless, you can check if the index exists with /di, I guess, and you also can add the index in database lab if it does not exist. So you should be able to do your testing anyway.
Right. So I could just like add it manually for my session, check it, like the timings and everything, and then just okay. Great. Thanks.
I was afraid for a while that you tried to add an index and it took 4 days.
Oh no.
Oh my god.
No,
the
index is there, I hope, somewhere, but it wasn't like in database lab.
Like an index over all tables, if there was one like that.
Yeah, I'm not sure that was like a very good idea, but
yeah, check it out. As Tim said, you can add it. Most indexes take, even if it is over a large table, it should not take more than 10 minutes. And you can then run your test. Remember that everything that you do in database lab is for the duration of your session. So if you start a session and then it expires during the overnight, you have to do it again.
I would do it again. Okay.
Yeah.
Sure. Thank you. Yeah, that's it for me, guys. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. I think that we covered everything. Any additional things you want to discuss or any comments? No? Okay, so that's it. Thank you. Another database office hours is in the can. And talk to you next time.
Bye-bye. See you all.
Bye.